הקדוש, בוקר אור, שבוע טוב. Masechet Bava Kamma Daf Tet Amud Aleph 59a1. We're going to bring now a third case. If the animal eats simadar are the small grapes, okay? That means immediately after they bud, right, they become simadar, so the animal eats them. Rabbi Yoshua comes and he says, we come, according to Shitat Rabbi Yoshua, and we look at it as if they're grapes which are fitting, right, to become harvested. Yeah, but Chachamim say no. We're going to check how much was the value of the land before the damage, and how much is the value of the land after the damage.
Big difference,
right? There's a huge difference. Not a big, there's a huge difference, right? Which actually does make sense. Okay, next. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Shimon. Says Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Shimon. When do we say these words? That fruits which are going to be damaged, we're going to evaluate them by the karka. Only if they ate the gefanim, these are like not the rams, like
the shoots of grapevines,
shoots,
or shoots of fig trees.
Very good, thank you. The shoots, right? Like shooting people, right? Whether it's talking about grapevines or the figs, right? But if it's going to be where they're already half cooked, meaning half ripened, or boser, meaning like this, by grapes, it starts off by simadar, then it becomes boser, meaning there are different stages. I don't know
if earlier than budding.
Right, but in English
they have earlier than budding. It just says it's earlier stage than budding.
Okay, earlier stage. No, but I'm saying, but in Hebrew, there's actually term, right? Exactly. Boser is already half of the ripening, and then you have the regular grapes. So then we are going to check. So basically, again, this was going to be the different stages. Katani mihat, but we did learn. Chachamim come and they say, so we're going to see how much is the value of the land, right? Whether it's going to be before or afterwards. And we did not learn, right, about the shishim. Meaning we didn't speak about the shishim. So he comes now and he says, right, as follows. So he says like this, because you remember we spoke about that there were 60 saplings or 60, right? We were saying we don't learn all these things. So Abaye now is going to finish off the proof, right, from the Braita. What are you going to answer over here? Right? What are you going to answer? So he says, B'shishim, you're going to tell me now that it's within 60? Hacharam b'shishim. You're going to tell me, no. You're talking about also 60, which means that it's going to be 60th of the... Yeah. So he comes and he says that even though the first Braita was talking about that it's actually skipped it out, we're dealing with also shishim, meaning mamash, it's like in 60, right? Which is also a huge difference. Because remember, even the karka before and after, the land is before and after is one thing. But if you're talking about that there's going to be another 60 trees there, that's a very, very big difference. You understand? It's not the same. Okay? Fine. Amar Rabbi. Rabbi now comes and he says, Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, Rabbi Ishmael, Amru Davar Echad. Okay? Rabbi Yosef Gilileh and Rabbi Ishmael, they both said one thing. Rabbi Yosef Gilileh was that which we just said right now, right? Because he just said that he has to actually come and pay, right, that which is going to be at the time of the katsir, at the time of the ripening, right? Right, that's the shita of Rabbi Yosef Gilileh. Okay, so now Abaye says Rabbi Yosef Gilileh and also Rabbi Ishmael also does the same thing, which means that we're going to go at the time of the ripening. Okay, what does that mean? That ki'ilu, that it's already ready to be ripened, to be reaped. Sorry, that's the word, right? That's what we're saying. So he says the Tanya, because we learned in a beraita, meitav sadeu meitav karmo yeshalem. What does that mean now? Meitav sadeu u'meitav karmo. Meitav sadeu shel nizak u'meitav karmo shel nizak. These are the words of Rabbi Ishmael, which means that it comes out that we're talking about the meitav sadeu of the nizak or the meitav karmo of the nizak. Okay, which makes sense. Meaning we're talking about the best of the fields of who? Of the damagee, the one that got damaged. Okay? Rabbi Akiva Omer. Rabbi Akiva says, no. When it says mitav sadeu mitav karmo shalem, lo ba katuv ela legvot nezakim min haidit vekal v'chomer lekdesh. We are talking about the damager, meaning which properties do we take from the damager to collect? We're going to collect from the properties of the idit, the creme de la, the best of the best. Yeah, vekal v'chomer, right? And all the more so when we're talking about now the Ekdesh. Okay? So says the Gemara, yeah, velo teima, and do not tell me now, right? That we're talking about like Rav Idi Baravin. The Rav Idi Baravin says of Idi Baravin, kegon achla ruga ben arugot. You remember we're talking about an animal that came in ate one furrow, one row between different rows. Velo yadina, now we don't know which row did he eat. Which means it is. Many times you have different rows of fruits. Sometimes this entire row, they're very, very strong because the ground was much stronger. It had more sunlight or had more this. And the next row is much weaker. It's an inferior
says here, rich
quality.
bed or poor bed?
Yeah, okay. That's what we're talking about.
Fat one or lean one?
Yes, meaning good or not good. So he comes and he says this. He says, we don't know which one he ate. He ate one entire row. But which row did he eat? Did he eat the good row or the bad row? We don't know. So he says, the Amar, that we could say, Kum shalim shmenat, pay a good one. Why? The mate of the ikashta, with the best of what you have right now. Tehachi lo amninan, because here we're not going to say this. My time, what's reasoning? Which means that at the end of the day, since it could be that he only ate a bad one, I could only take the bad one. Right? Why? Because if I don't bring a re'ayah, if I don't bring a proof which one he ate, automatically I'm going to go to the lower one, to the inferior one. Yeah, bring me a proof. He for sure damaged, yes. But you want to take out more money from me. The bad one was worth, let's say, $100. The other one was $200. Whatever it is. Prove it.
Proof.
Huh?
You need proof.
You need proof for sure. You always need
If
proof.
they know for sure it's a lower bed, he only gets for the lower.
Oh, that's for sure if they know for sure. But even if it's a doubt and we don't know, he still only pays the lower bed. Why? Bring a proof. I'll pay you. But you bring the proof. You bring me a proof that it's a better one, I'll pay you a better one. Yeah, you don't know proof. Listen. Kapara. That's the way it is. Okay? But rather, bemeitav de lekame, right? We're talking about the meitav, which is talking about the best of the nizak. So mind you, kiech de salit, which means we're talking about the shovi, which comes afterwards. So that's like going to be the value of this furrow, right? He says the value of this furrow thinking. Right? He comes and he says this is going to be the value of this furrow, right? When they're actually going to come up and they're ready to be reaped. So it comes out of the kavanah of Rabbi Ishmael is like Rabbi Oziel. That means we come and we take the value of what it's going to be later on when you reap it. So it means even though right now he damaged it and it's not reaped, but it's not ripe, it's still, there's still time in that. I look at the value as coming later on. That's what Rabbi Ishmael holds, just like Rabbi Oziel HaGelileh. So now the Gemara is going to go back, right, and say the following. Amar Mor, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Shimon. What are these words, right, that you're going to actually evaluate it by the land? That it ate the shoots, thank you, of the Gifanim, right, and the shoots of the Tenim. So we're talking about the grapes of the figs. So says the Gemara, 1 second, we want to make a deduction now. Hasmadar. We're talking about the shoots. What about the actual smadar, which is the grapes, but they're just in the earliest stage right after budding? Ro'inoto, so we're going to look at it, right? It says over here, we're going to look at it as what? Ke'ilu, ro'inotam, we're going to look at them, ke'ilu, right? Anavim omdim la'omdoli batzer, ke'ilu, that the grapes are ready to be reaped. So 1 second, so ima seifa, let's see the seifa. Achla pagim o boser, if it ate pagim o boser, which is basically, again, the pagim was the figs, and the boser is the grapes, but it's just each one is half ripened, right? Hasmadar, but if it's going to be smadar, we come, we look how much was the value. That's what we're going to find out.
Contradicts, no?
Right? Exactly. That's the question. We're trying to make a deduction, the exact opposite of what we just said now. We wanted to just say right now that if it's going to come, one of the words that you're going to evaluate by the karka, only when it's going to be the shoots. But if right now it's smadar, we're going to come and we're going to look at it as that it's going to be reaped, which means that you're going to actually pay full value. And then the seifa comes and he says that only if you know that it's going to be omdoli batzer. But if it's smadar, we don't do that. So how do we make a diuk from the reisha and from the seifa? From the reisha, from the former part of the Mishnah, it's mashma, that's smadar, which you remember, the smadar is the early stages of budding by the grapes, that you're going to have to pay kilo omdoli batzer, kilo that it's already ripe.
No, you only pay if it's already ripe, if it's half fat.
No, but look at the beginning of the Braita. Ha, smadar, the earlier stage right after budding, we're going to look at it as if it's going to be the what? that it's already going to be reaped. Right?
Yeah.
Ema Seifa, that's a Reisha, meaning that's the former part of the Mishnah or the Braita. Now we're going to say Ema Seifa. Let's see the Seifa. The Seifa says, Achla Pagim, right? This is a Braita, not a Mishnah. Right? The Seifa comes and it says, Achla Pagim Ubosef, it ate something which is half, right? Then we come and we look at it that way. Mashma, meaning we could deduce from here that it's only if it's half. If it's going to be at the earlier stages, you do not do it. So that's the contradiction. The contradiction is the former part is mashma. You could deduce that you pay that it's as if it's right from the beginning, from the early stages. And then afterwards it comes and says, no, that it's only going to be afterwards. So how do we do it then? Yeah, that's the question. So Amar Ravina, right? Ravina comes, right? And he says, Keroch Vetani. We're going to say Keroch Vetani. What does that mean? We're going to take the smadar together with the other cases of the Braita. The Tanya, we're going to learn, but what are these words exactly? Only if it ate the shoots of the gifanim and the shoots of the figs and the grapes. But if it ate smadar pagim or boser, meaning this, now we're actually changing it. Really, be'emet, smadar is exactly like pagim v'boser. Meaning, it doesn't matter whether it's a half ripened or beginning ripened season, but it's not shoots. Shoots is completely different than anything else, right? The shoots, you're right. It's another halacha. The shoots, we evaluate the karka. We're going to see the karka, the ground, and this and that. Here now, we're talking about something else. So here we're talking about not the karka. We're actually talking about now, right, something else. What is
ready to be picked? Sounds like full damages.
Yeah, 100%.
But the other one, the other case, shoots means what? What are you going to 60 times the whole thing? You're going to do all that? Okay.
So ask the Gemara. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda is of Yoshua then. What's going on exactly? Right? How does that work exactly?
Are budding grapes the same as ready to be picked?
Or not? That's the question. So the Gemara answers, no, you're right. They both held the same thing, but the difference between them is kachash gufna. What is kachash gufna? Right? Velo mesaime. What does that mean? There's a machlok between them is, do you take off the tashlume nezek, right? Which means, meaning velo mesaime means that we didn't actually finish off who said what. But there is a machlok between them. The machlok between them is, do we take off the nezek because of making it weaker, right? By eating it so early. What does that mean exactly? If you would have left these until the end, right, they would have actually come and they would have made weaker, right, the other ones, right? Because basically, since they're taking also part of the nourishment, so it's making the other ones weaker. So it comes out that when the animal eats the smadad, it's actually stopping a type of a nezek, right? So Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Shimon are arguing, do we deduct this from the nezek? One more time, right? You've got different fruits on a tree. Every single fruit takes nourishment. It takes the nurture, right? It takes from the tree. Now, what happens in a case where all of a sudden, right, if I'm going to get rid of these grapes and they ate them so early, so now it doesn't take any more nourishment. So now it comes out that the other
vine gets weakened. Vine gets weakened.
Well, the vine gets weakened, right, when you have too much on it. But when you take that away, so now it's not anymore, that's it. So the question is, can I deduct the money that now I'm not, meaning I actually saved you in a sense that keilu, that I'm keilu doing you a favor. It's not really a favor, obviously, but keilu, can I deduct the amount of money that I saved you, that now the rest of them are going to get full nourishment?
We're going to talk about a virgin now and pain and hymen and stuff like that.
It's a Torah of in Shabbat. You're not allowed to cut a branch because you're gonna. It's like if you.
It's like you're planting. Yeah, 100%. The pruning. Pruning is like that, 100%. Yeah. Okay. Until here, so that's the machloka between them. Now we don't know who said what. Okay. Fine. Says the Gemara. Abaye comes and he says, Mesaime umesaime. What are you talking about? Right? We are talking about that they finished off. Right? So man Tana dechayish lechachesh kufna. Who's the Tana comes that he's suspecting for making it weaker? So Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, here it is Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. Tanya, because we learned in the Bright of Shimon and Yehuda, men in the Masechet of Shimon ben Asya, ha'ones eno mishalem et hatzah. Somebody that comes and violates a woman doesn't have to pay suffering. Says why? Anyway, she was going to suffer, but under her husband. Amrulo, they said, what are you talking about? You're going to compare a case of a woman that she's having relations willingly and not willingly, and you're going to tell me it's the same tzad? You're going to tell me it's the same suffering? Saying, Iowa, like, where are you going? Right? It doesn't mean that. And the truth is, it doesn't make sense. For sure, it's not the same. You can't compare both together. Correct, Richard?
Complicated.
What's complicated?
No,
Yeah. Yeah, you can't compare both cases. Okay? So says the Gemara, Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Hani tonight, and that means one more time. We wanted to say that really be'emet, this was going to be the shita of, because Abaye comes and he said, one more time, we had the difference between Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda and Rabbi Yoshua was, do you deduct for a type of a taking down in value for the fact that technically speaking, he did me a favor. What was the favor? By him coming and damaging the samadar, the early buds, now the other ones are going to become better. They're going to flourish more. Sometimes, by the way, they do that. You know that. Sometimes there does exist such a thing that you come and anything which you look and you see it's not the best, you take it away. Right away,
Isn't
even from the
that why
beginning.
people, professional pruners, they come in.
That's why I said pruning. That's why he said it's even a tolada of growing. Why? Because when you come and you prune, you actually appreciate everything else.
Yeah.
Right? So therefore, I could come and I could say, listen, Richard, I have to pay you for damage, but technically speaking, you know what? I did you a favor. I pruned.
Says yes, or it just says no.
So now 1 second. So now we didn't know who says what. Velo Messiah, they didn't finish it. So Abaye wanted to come and say, he says, no, they did finish it. Why? We hold that it should be Rishuma ben Yehuda. Why? Because Rishuma ben Yehuda comes and he says, if you violate a woman, you don't have to pay for suffering. Why? Anyway, it's going to suffer. She's going to suffer, right? Under her husband. So the Gemara, the rabbis come and they ask him, I don't understand. What are you comparing both cases? That's like you're comparing apples to oranges. A woman that's violated, she's really bemet suffering. It's trauma, it's this and that. A woman that's with her husband, it's not the same thing. You're right. Does it hurt at the beginning? Yes, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's not the same thing. No, חס ושלום. זה אונס. אבל זה גם אונס. זה גם אונס. Right? זה גם אונס.
אז בגלל זה אני... אומרים שהיא סובלת.
אמר אביי, so Abaye comes and he says, Hani Tanai, these Tanaim, okay, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, and Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, right, Amru Dovar Echad, they both said the same thing. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda was what we just said now. The Hani Tanai, what is these Tanaim? And as we learned to the Braita, right, it says, Rabbi Yosef says, Nakeh Chaya, you're actually going to take away from the Schar Amyaledet.
You cause some lady to miscarry,
Right?
pregnant woman.
A pregnant woman to miscarriage, exactly. That means you went and you hit a woman and you caused her to miscarriage. So now you could deduct how much does it cost for the hospital fees.
The midwife.
Yeah, the midwife fees. Yeah? So he
Extra
comes,
food. Unbelievable.
yeah. So you come and he says, Nakeh chaya, right? You're going to take it off, right? But Rabbi Ben Azai comes and he says, Nakeh mezonot, right? You're going to come and you're going to take off from the mezonot. What does that mean? Mezonot, right? That he was the food. Why? Because during her pregnancy, she had to eat more, right? She had to keep herself fit. So therefore, you deduct that as well. So mandamar nekechaya, according to the mandamar that you take off for the hospital fees, right? For the midwife fees, kol sheken nakeh mizonot. So all the more so you're going to take off the mizonot, right? Which is Rabbi Yosef. So kol sheken you're going to take off the food. But according to the mandamar that you only take off for food, but you do not take off for the midwife fees. The Elmaleh could say, my wife, just like the midwives told Paro, my wife was a smart woman. She doesn't need a midwife. She could do it herself. She has the babies at home. Don't worry about it. Nothing happens. Yeah? Okay. Next. Okay.
Cutting down your friend's palm tree.
Yes. Well, that's what we're going to speak about now. Rav Papa. Rav Huna bere de Rav Yoshua. Rav Papa and Rav Huna bere de Yoshua. Avud uvda kavate de Rav Nachman. They did like Rav Nachman. What does that mean? It says, that B'shishim, that they actually paskin. We're going to look at as if that there's going to be 60 trees, and then they're going to check the damage. Lishna charina, right? So he says another version. Papa Ravuna Rav Yoshua Shamu Dikla Agav Katina De'ara. They're going to evaluate, right, the palm tree by 60 of what we call Karka Ktana. The Hilchata Kavaten Halacha is like them. The Rav Papa Ravuna Rav Yoshua, the Dikla Dharma, right, with, right, the Mikra Dekel Armai. The Hilchata Kavaten Resh Kaluta, Bedikla Parsa. And the Halacha is going to be also like the Dayan with Resh Kaluta of the Dekel Parsi.
I don't know what's the difference.
Here he says that since it's such an important type of a palm tree, so it's always evaluated by itself, because it's so chashuv. You can never sell it by karka, meaning you can never make a sale of it on its own, like a by field. It has to be sold on its own because it's so chashuv. It's like a very, very important type of a tree.
Who's the XLR?
The what?
It says the halacha follows the XLR in the case of a Persian palm.
Also, as Resh Kaluta. Resh Kaluta, they were always like the rabbis. They were like the rabbis.
Papa Rav Huna, is it one of these people, or does it say who it is?
No. Resh Kaluta. That's what they are. They're the heads. Okay. Eliezer Zira. Eliezer Atzaid. Nuntet Mubet. 59b. Hava Sayim Misane Uchme. Right, he was wearing black shoes like the Avelim. Bekai Beshuka de Neharda. So it's something incredible that even the shoes and everything they had, right? This entire concept. What type of shoes and what type of everything. So he was wearing, right? Here it says that everyone had usually black shoes, but it was even the black laces as well.
Like that. So they have socks, like Arabs and the Jews have the black and the Arabs have the white.
Wow. So the Jews have one color and
Kabbalistim?
No.
Wow. Okay. No, but that's mamash. Then you could tell. No, because here it's mashma that everyone would wear the same, but just the ones in a velut would wear black shoelaces. Meaning not the shoe. The shoe is the same, but it's just the laces. Okay. So yeah, he says v'kai beshuka de narda. So he was in the shuka narda. Ashkechu dever shkaluta. So shkaluta found them. Ve'amrule, they told him, why are you wearing this? What's going on? Amarle, he says, dekai me'abina Yerushalayim. I'm mourning on Jerusalem. Amrule, they told him, at chashivta. Are you chashuv? Right? Are you that chashuv that you're going to start mourning on Jerusalem?
Call me crazy if I told you.
Yeah?
No, sure.
So he says, savur yuarahava. So they thought it was arrogance. Why? Because sometimes people they're arrogant, so they're doing a show. Sometimes you see that, by the way, people, you could tell that, sometimes you just say, what, calm down the show. There's no shows here. You understand? So here the same thing. They said the show is called yuara. Yuara means it's arrogance. Like, what are you trying to show? Yeah. So what happened was Amalek Alehu, he comes and tells him, Gavra Rabbana. He tells him, what are you talking about? I'm a Latu. I'm a Gavra Rabba. I'm a great person. Amrule, they told him, Menayadana, how do I know? Amarlo, he told them, or Atumba Minaminta, or Ana, Iva Minaychuminta. So it's very simple. Either you ask me a question or I'm going to ask you a question, and let's check. He told him, no, either you give me the test or I'm going to give you the test. Okay? So what happened? So he says like this. He says,
can't dance two weddings.
Right? Amrule. So they told him. Yeah? They said like this. They said, Bayat, right? We want to come. And he says really like this. Bayat, you ask the question. Amarlo, he told them, Hayman de cuts kufra. A person that comes and he cuts off dates, many dates after they fell off from the flowers. My Mishalem, what does he have to pay? Amrule, they told him, Shalom the mekufra, he has to pay the mekufra. So ask the Gemara, yeah, but they're going to become tmanim, meaning when they ripen, they're going to become dates. Amrule, so he said, okay, fine. So Shalom the mekufra, so they're going to pay dates. So Amalu, he says, yeah, but he didn't take off dates. Right? He took off the first stage. Amrule, they told him, so you tell him. Amalu b'shishim was 60. Amrule, they told him, Manamar Kavatach, who says like you? Amalu, he says, Shmuel Chai Bedino Kayam. Right? He says, look, you have Shmuel and it's Bedin. So Shadru come in to Shmuel, they sent in front of Shmuel. Amalu, he said, Shmuel, Shapi Kamalu Shavku. So they left him. meaning they tested him. The second that they saw that he was a great person, okay, you're allowed, right? Because a great person is allowed to mourn on Jerusalem, but they just didn't want that it should become like a show that that they're doing different things. Okay, but it was actually exactly like our Gemara to do with the concept of shishim. Okay, fine. 2 dots. Everyone with me? Rabbi Shimon Omer, Achla perot gemurim. If the animal ate complete fruit, Maitama, what's the reasoning of this? Hadam Rachman, as the Torah says, what does that mean? That if the animal ate fruits, he has to pay the value, right? The value, not that just went down or whatever it is, but he has to pay the full value. What's going on here? It says, Maitama, the Rachman, the Torah says, Melamed sheshamim al gav hasadeh, right? When are we going to evaluate on the field? Hanemile midid tzarich, something that needs a field, right? Avalhani perot, which are already full, since they don't need the field, you always have to pay the full amount. Meaning, when do we say that you're going to evaluate according to the field? When it still needs the field. But if it doesn't need the field, because it's already completely ripe, which means that you can just already take it off and then there's no problem. So therefore, in such a case, it's it. Okay?
You can not consider it part of the field.
Yes. So Amar Ravuna bar Chia, Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, says Ravuna bar Chia, the name of Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Dan Rav Rabbi Meir. Do you know that Rav paskin like Rabbi Meir, upasak hilchata ke Rabbi Shimon, and he was posek halacha like Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so very good. So Rav comes and he paskins like Rabbi Meir, and they paskin the hilchata like Rabbi Shimon, which means Rav paskin in one place like Rabbi Meir, in one place he paskin like Rabbi Shimon. So now, how does that work? You can't paskin like both sides. Like it doesn't make sense. So the Gemara is actually going to say as follows: Dan Rav ke Rabbi Meir, he paskins like Rabbi Meir. In which case, exactly,
The minority view.
the Tanya, right? He comes and he says, is that we learned on the right, Katav l'rishon velo chatmalo. Imagine right now, the guy comes and he writes to the first lokeach of the Sadeh, but the wife did not actually come and sign on the sale. And then afterwards, he sold it to a second guy, the chatmalo, and she actually signed on the deal. Ibda ketubata. She lost the ketubah. Why? Right? That's what it says. Right? Because from now on, then she cannot take from the lekuchot. Because the fact that she signed on the sale, it means that she agreed to the sale, and therefore, if she now wants to collect her ketubah, she cannot collect from these lekuchot. Remember, the ketubah is subjugated on everything that he has.
She didn't sign on the first one.
I know, but the fact that she signed on the second one, she lost her ketubah because that means she agreed to the sale, right? And therefore, if she wants to collect now her ketubah from the lekuchot, she can't, because if she agrees to the sale, listen, you agreed to it. I'm sorry. Why did you agree? You shouldn't have agreed. And if you shouldn't have agreed, then you could have said, because everything is on a lien to you. These are the words that Rabbi mean. Okay? Rabbi Yehuda says, Yecholai shetamar, she could say, Nachat ruach asiti lebale. Ve'atem malachem alai. She could say, I'm sorry. You know what? I only did the good for my husband. Meaning the only reason why I signed was not because I was agreeing to the sale. Really, Be'emet, I don't agree to the sale. But I wanted that my husband should feel good. And the fact that I wanted that my husband should feel good, you can't start telling me that the fact that I signed, I lost a ketubah, and this, and that, and that. No. I'm sorry.
The footnote explains it because with the first buyer, she can't collect from his field because when he bought it, there was still an unsold property. The second field.
It's only the second field. Exactly. Very good. Okay. Upasak hilchata, but we pass in halacha, right? Like Rabbi Shimon. He says over here, it's not just like we learned in the Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon says, "Achla perot gemurim, meshalem perot gemurim." If you actually ate perot gemurim, you have to pay perot gemurim. But im se'ah, if it's a se'ah, sometimes. So again, basically, he's paskening like Rabbi Shimon that really, be'emet, we do come and we do go that if it's a full-fledged fruits, you pay the full-fledged fruits. Okay?
That's if you ate them, right? Not if you trampled them.
Yes.
Does it matter?
Oh, here we're talking about eating. Trampling was regular. There's a different halachot. There's Rabbi, everything else. Fine. Mishnah. Nuntet Amud Bet. 59. B. The Mishnah. Hamagdish betoch sedech chavero shel bishut. Imagine right now somebody comes and he makes a gadish of tevuah. So he makes this pile of tevuah inside his friend's fields without permission. So imagine I come and I make a thing, a pile of grain, and I put it in your field. And then, the owner of the field comes, He says, "Oh wow, mamash, my owner is so good. He comes and he eats it. He's patur, right? He's patur of paying. The imus kaba enough, he actually gets damaged. Balagadish chayav. So the balagadish is going to be chayav, right? The imigdish birshut. Now, if behemet it was done birshut, balasadeh is going to be chayav. Okay, make sense? Okay. Says the Gemara, lematnan de lo kerabi. Why don't we just say that our Mishnah is not like Rabbi, right? The Rabbi, because if you're going to tell me it's going to be like Rabbi, Ha'amar, right? He says, Ad shekabel alav balabait lishmor, until the balabait is going to be shomer, right? So then that's what's going to happen, okay? So he's not going to be chayav on the nezek. So Amar Rav Papa says, Hacha benatar beidari askina, right? He comes and he says, here we're talking about a case where he's shomer on the granot, which means he's watching over the granaries. The kevan da Elmaleh, because since he says ayilu gdosh, bring it in, ayil ve'antalach. So it's kidu, he told him, bring it in, and I'm going to watch over it. Everyone understood? One more time. Our Mishnah is not going like Rabbi because he comes and he says, if the Balasadet permitted him to bring in the Gadish, so therefore he accepts upon himself the responsibility, even though he didn't say mefurash that he's going. That means he didn't say explicitly he's going to watch over it, but it's keilu he said it. Why? Because it has to be not like Rabbi. Because if it was going to be Rabbi, he says until mamash you have to accept upon yourself responsibility. So Papa comes and he says, no, here we're talking about that you did accept upon yourself. He told him bring it in. Secondly, he told him bring it in. It's like you said, I'm going to watch it. If I come and I tell you bring in your fruits to my field, what does that mean? I'm going to take care of it, right? That's what he's saying. Fine. Next Mishnah. The next Mishnah says, Hasholeach et habe'erah. If you send a fire in the hand of a cheresh shotav katan, you're going to be patur, right? But patur from what? Midinei adam. Only patur midinei adam. But you're going to be chayav midinei shemayim. Okay? But if shalach bil pikach, so the pikach is going to be chayav. Which means this: if you gave it to a fully competent person, obviously that fully competent, he's the one that's chayav and everything. Why? You gave it to somebody to watch over. So the fire is in his hands. So whatever happens, it's his fault. But if you give it to a cheresh shotav katan, I cannot obligate you midinei adam. Because at the end of the day, I gave it to somebody else, and he took matters into his own hand. But the fact that I gave it to a guy, which is not really 100%, responsible, so it's ki'ilu I'm still chayav dinei shamayim. Okay? Echad evi et ha'ur, echad evi et ha'etzim, right? Ve'amevi et ha'etzim chayav. If somebody comes and he brings the fire, and somebody brings the wood for the fire, and then the fire comes and damages, so the one that brings the wood is going to be chayav. Echad evi et ha'etzim, echad evi et ha'etzim. Someone brings the wood and one brings the fire, in that order, so this, if you already have the fire and then somebody brings the wood, so the wood is what continues the fire going, because if there's no wood, there's no fire. So therefore, who's going to be chayav? The one that brings the wood. But if it was the opposite case, you come and you bring the wood, but you didn't turn on the fire. And now somebody comes and he makes the fire. So the one that made the fire is the one that's going to be chayav, obviously, because what did you do? You just brought wood, you put wood somewhere, right? You're going to be chayav. You didn't do anything. Right? He says, ba'acher v'liba. But if somebody comes and he starts with the bellows,
fanning it,
right? But I forgot what they're called. What are
bellows.
The bellows. Right? He came and he used the bellows in order to come to fan it. Amlabeh is going to be chayav. Libta ruach, but if it was done by the wind, kulam turim, everyone's going to be paturim, because since everyone's going to be patur because you didn't do anything, right? But basically each one is going to say I'm patur because it was the wind that actually came and was able to change everything. Okay? Amar Shakish mishmeh de Chizkiah. Says Resh Lakish in the name of Chizkiah. Lo shanu, what are we dealing with? Ela shemasar lo gachelet veliba. Only if he gave him a gachelet and he made it into a fire. Aval masar lo shalhevet chayav. If he gave him a shalhevet, he's going to be chayav. My tama, what's the reasoning? Ma'asav kagarmulo. Because his actions were the ones that actually, which means like this. What are we talking about here? We're talking about that he gave the gachel the coals, right? And then, right, the cheresh or whoever it was, he was the one that continued making it going. But if he gave an actual flame,
a torch,
right, or an actual flame, an actual fire, for sure he's going to be chayav. My tama, it was his own actions that did it. Meaning, if you give him like as if say you give him the gun loaded, so obviously you're going to be chayav. What are you doing? But if you just gave him, let's say, the gun, there was no bullets, and all of a sudden he had to look for it, so now technically speaking, you are a type of a grama, so you're going to be chayav dinei shamayim. But it was the other guy that actually went and he did everything else. In a sense, Rabbi Yochanan argues and he says, no, afilu masalo shalhevet, right? Even if he gives him over the shalhevet, you're going to be patur. My tama, what's the reasoning? tzivata, right? Which means the shlita of the cheresh karmalo caused him, right? He's not going to be chayav until he's going to give him to the cheresh kotzim, thorns. And he says, what does that mean, right? Vesilta or etzim dakim, small little tiny wood, pieces of wood. V'shraga or a candle. Meaning like this. What Rabbi Yochanan is actually saying is, even if you give him the fire, you're still going to be patur. You give him a torch, you're still going to be patur. What's the reasoning? Because at the end of the day, it was the grabbing onto it, which means the cheresh was the one that did everything, right? So when are you going to be chayav then? He says you're going to be chayav, right? If you're going to give to the cheresh, kotzim, like all these other small things, because then that's when you did the damage. He wants to say that it's kiru, that for sure you're pshia, it's like a poshea. Says the fact that you just come and you gave a cheresh, deaf mute, fire, it doesn't mean that you're going to be negligent, but here it's mamash negligent. That's why you're going to be firing. With this, we finish the two dogs.